we're coming back.
I don't know why he's avoiding that.
All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The conversation still continues, and we're bringing up a bit of your feedback in just a short while and bring them up on screen. But Mwendo, we're talking about this procession or protest that you're talking about. How is this going to play out? What is the plan so that people know where you're going to start, where you're going to head to?
For a start,
Yes.
Today's protest will be centered around main campus, from the halls of residence across to Uhuru Highway and to the University Way. That is the plan. But as you know, most of these protests take a life of their own once you're on the ground. We intend it to be peaceful, as always, but as my colleague there said, it's always the police who escalate matters. In fact, you are marching peacefully, then they come with their trucks, immediately they fire tear gas. In such a scenario now, things get chaotic. There has never been an instance where students went to the streets and attacked police first. It is always the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then if you say University Way and Uhuru Highway, you don't have any guarantees that this will not turn into chaos. That's where my main concern is, because the motorists there, the people who are just going about their business, they have nothing to do with the reforms at the University of Nairobi.
This is true, but you know, there are ways to settle a dispute. The first, of course, is the diplomatic route. This is an injustice. It has to be settled, whether we use the diplomatic route. If that is not workable, then we go the comrades route. The best case scenario and the best advice I'd give the administration now is to put a stay on this whole reform and fee increment thing. Call back the stakeholders, let us discuss. That way there is no any collateral damage, there is no fracas, and we come up with a decision that is jointly owned by all stakeholders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what time is this protest going to start?
What?
What time is the protest going to start?
Morning hours.
You don't want to disclose.
Morning hours, yeah.
Okay, what would it take for you to call it off?
I think, like I told you before, discussions cannot happen after the fact. I think for today's protests, that is a ship that has already sailed. The comrades are already charged up. Even if I, as president, I was to call it off today, I think it would fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
The only guarantee I can make is for the subsequent weeks, if the administration steps back and invites all the stakeholders, especially the students. We are the largest stakeholders. There is no university without students.
Yeah.
If they call us back and we have an inclusive discussion, then I can guarantee you next week we will not have a protest.
Okay.
But for today, I cannot make such a guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Manyara, where is the position for freedom of choice in all these conversations? Fine, University of Nairobi decides that they've increased their school fees, and I'm a new student, not an ongoing student. If I get there and realize that the fees is too high, there are many other universities. There's about 71 of them. Why do I have to go to the UN? I could decide to go to another one. Freedom of choice, right?
Now, the concern here, Trevor, is the issue. The University of Nairobi sets a precedent to other institutions. The moment that the University of Nairobi adopts this policy of increasing school fees, that means even Kabianga, Pwani University, Masinde Muliro, Garissa University, they will all increase school fees. And not only school fees, remember even in the Ministry of Education, there are no serious ways of regulating private institutions regarding how they increase school fees, why, and for instance, when. So personally, what I can say is that, of course, there's a choice of coming to the University of Nairobi and not.
Yeah.
Remember, this government currently, we have more than 1,200 TVET institutions. When we talk about TVET institutions, of course, colleges, polytechnics, TTIs, all of them are incorporated there. Now, you cannot tell all the students to come to the University of Nairobi, but there are other institutions which they can go to. What if now also other institutions, they increase school fees? Which institution will students go? Remember, Trevor, currently if you want to go to the University of Nairobi, take for instance to pursue architecture, in 1990s, architecture in one class there was only around 30 students, just that. Right now we have more module 2 students than module 1, which we should question the government. Why is that happening? Do we really say that we are going towards the module 2 way? Even if institutions are moving towards, raising funds through module 2 students because they pay more. Remember, it's even very unfair, because Trevor, a module 1 student pays around 26,000, 26,000. A module 2 student pays to a tune of 600,000. Remember, maybe like practices like medicine, practice like engineering, law, those kind of courses. Now, Trevor, just allow me also to talk about the issue of reducing the positions at the top. Really, that's hypocrisy, simply because you are reducing just a few positions. In the University of Nairobi, you take for instance, you are taking the positions of 5 DVCs or even 3 DVCs. What you have just cut down is a recurrent expenditure, which is salaries. You have not really come up with policies, better policies, which can be able to raise funds in the institution. Talk about you are saving as an institution because students maybe are not in school. But how are you saving? Maybe the current number of security guards who are in the university, they are still the same number. Current operations in the university, they are happening normally. They are happening normal. Why, when you talk about cutting down on expenses, then we expect also the services rendered in the university to reduce. Secondly also, Mwenda talked about today students will start protesting. My directive as the CUSO chairman and my advice is this: if students go out in the streets and they get frustrated too much, it is their democratic right to protest. It is their democratic right to demonstrate and picket. If they are targeted by, they suspect they are targeted by the institution, because all institutions, especially private, they have a way of, suspending, expelling students who are politically, driven, especially when fighting for the rights of their colleagues. Then they should now start doing the demonstrations at night, or even failing to give the plan to the police. And that's not where we are supposed to end as a community. If we are honest enough, we are telling you we are going to demonstrate from 8 a.m. Then you should provide security for us, protect, not to come with tear gas to come and disturb the peace. Remember, these students, they are intellectuals. I've never seen a student from the University of Nairobi who has ever touched the library. I've never seen a university student who has ever touched where they sleep. They only do that when they are extremely frustrated, when they don't want to continue anymore. But Trevor, look at this scenario. The institution of University of Nairobi is increasing school fees. At what time? COVID-19 time. Number 2, HELB has slashed money allocated to students, which has been cut by Treasury to a tune of from 45,000 to that 5,000. Even TVET institutions, they have gone down from a tune of 40,000 all the way to 25,000. What does that mean, Trevor? The 135,000 students who are benefiting from HELB, they have reduced all the way to 95,000. Even as the National Steering Committee of Kenya University Students Organization, we have adopted a policy which we are going to propose to the government to see how we can come up with our own cooperative, SACCO, whereby we can be able to lead to our own students. Why? Because currently there is starvation. Juzi, uliona wanafunzi wa Moi University, starving, eating rats, literally, eating, hunting birds, frying them, sababu ya njaa. We are not heading to a situation whereby the institutions, they fall on to deaf ears. You expect to teach a student who is hungry. Now, Trevor, just to finish, the institution of Nairobi has some misplaced priorities. Talk of partnerships. Juzi, it partnered with Telcom to ensure that students have bundles. How much money was spent on that? A lot of money. Do we know how it was utilized? Did the students even coming from remote areas get access those kind of bundles? It's a question maybe you can pose to the Vice Chancellor. Do the current school fees, so that even the parent can be able to be confident that if you increase school fees, I have the confidence to pay for my student. Does the current school fees, do we have audit? Even the FME system, which they say that it's a bit flawless, can we talk to Nancy Gadungu and tell her, as the Auditor General, please do forensic audits to these accounts? Do we really know if I pay, let's say for instance, where I'm taking law in Parklands, if I pay 200,000, do I really know where this money is being spent, how?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of concerns which we should be able to address going forward. And as KUSO, we are going to address that matter hands-on, without fearing anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Waiter, you know, you've also, in the reforms, there's been reduction of the courses from 579 to 311. The faculties have also been reduced from 35 to 11. Good idea or bad idea?
Well, for sure, let us be honest. There are programs, and I have examples, which would attract no student, or a program that would attract 1 or 2 students, like in my department.
Yeah.
You know, if you have to carry out a practical for 2 students, it is going to be very expensive, because it would be like you are preparing for 50 students, 10 students. So certain programs which are not viable then have no problem. You can reduce them, because if they don't attract students, or they attract 1 or 2 students, it will become very expensive for the university.
Okay.
Yes, to carry on with those programs.
So this was a good idea?
Well, for those programs that do not attract students.
Yeah. So you see, sound to me like there's some of the reforms that you're okay with. It's just the consultations, that's where the problem
Of course, you
was.
see, even when you are saying you are abolishing, it is like they were abolished, because if a program doesn't attract a student, it is like it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Bosire, what do you think about this move? Reducing the programs and also faculties.
Trevor, that is an issue that is critical. You know, you scrap programs, and you also need money. Meaning, personally, from a public administration standpoint, is you need to question yourself, what has gone wrong? If a program was attracting 70 students or 60 students, now the program is attracting 2 or 3 students. Yes, it can be one of the candidates for scrapping, remove it or abolish it. But what is the problem? I don't think we have done an analysis as a university that these programs are not performing because of these reasons. You know, why are students going away? You know, we are scrapping programs because they don't have students. At the same time, we're increasing fees. You know, for me, I see there is a contradiction there. You increase fees, then more programs are going to be casualties. There are more programs that are not going to be affordable, and they'll be scrapped. I think the way we are doing these reforms is reactionary. Trevor, I see it as reactionary. We are not really sitting down and enabling or allowing people to ventilate, talk about this, and come up with viable alternatives to what we have. We are a premier university with all these human resources and well-trained people in all fields, but we are not engaged. Unions have been neglected. The VC does not think that unions are important because they are like an impediment. Unions are not an impediment. Unions protect jobs, and as we are here, protect the welfare of members. And therefore, we are not there to fight for the sake of fighting, but we are unions representing the rights of our members. When things are done right, we are okay. But when some things are wrong, we raise these issues. So when scrapping some programs, yes, those are not viable, but have we done our due diligence and find out how shall we grow our programs? For me, that is what the university should be doing, the university management should be doing. How shall we grow our programs? Can we do something? Can we be more creative? They try to be creative, but I think they have failed in the creativity test. Because we are going as a reactionary. Let me say something also, Trevor, on that note. We know that the Public Service Commission carried out interviews for principals just in May, and DVCs in May. It was done. The interviews were done. And the Vice Chancellor says these reforms started in 2018. So he did not know, one could assume that he did not know that these officers were going to be scrapped if the reforms have been ongoing, or the formulation of those reforms has been going on. Then not to commit government to spend resources to interview people competitively interviewed. And I'm saying there is a problem, and I think there is a problem because it's like the council and the VC are trying to prevent appointments of people perhaps they did not like, who are likely to be appointed to those positions. A good case in point is a case that was in court on DVC research. Professor Goat, Madaro Goat. Yeah. I don't know if the case is still active in court. He was reinstated by the court, and the VC refused, and the council, they refused to allow him to occupy the office. An appeal went to court. Now they are scrapping the same offices. I see a sinister motive in this process, where university administration is preventing even national government, Public Service Commission, from ensuring that we have competent officers, certain officers. You abolish officers that in May, they have already done interviews, and we were waiting for appointments. Yeah. It looks like these fellows are fighting a war that we don't understand under the guise of reforms. Okay. But if these matters are going to go to the conclusive stage, if we proceed with this, and there are people who are likely to lose jobs, as unions were saying, this process must stop now. Yeah. We get involved, we discuss and agree on how the university should move. Okay. Because we are seeing a problem ahead. Yeah. Otherwise, I think the VC cannot be allowed to turn the university into a dictatorship, into an autocratic system, a patrimonial system that lords on everyone else.
But Dr. Bosire, you know, the VC was also there where he's sitting, and he said there will be no job losses. You don't believe him?
You know, he has not given us a document. Yeah. Perhaps in his secret document, he knows, and he has written most likely 100 people or 1,200 people, or whatever number is going to lose jobs. When you talk about Trevor, he talked about redundancies. He didn't talk about, for example, duplication of roles. He says redundancies. Now, if he declares some people redundant, what happens? They'll be laid off. And he has said it, and he's trying to work like between unions, this one and this one, separate the unions. Our role is to synergize. Unions work together, and our roles are the same. Then he says, oh, when he meets, no academic staff will lose a job. When he talks to Kusu, he says, no one will lose a job. Yeah. But these are the words from his own mouth, written nowhere. Yeah. And when we allow this process to go on, most likely people are going to lose their jobs. Okay. And if it happens, what will be our recourse? Yeah. So we're saying, let us discuss, even if we know people are going to lose jobs, how shall they be cushioned henceforth? I remember you asking him the question, then, will you give them a send-home package if there are people who lose? It was non-committal, completely non-committal. Yeah. So these things are being done under the guise like IMF has done, World Bank has done. Kenya is a sovereign state. We cannot, IMF cannot come into the University of Nairobi and say, do this, do that. It has never happened that way. Our laws are still there. Our constitution is there. We must work together and get engaged as stakeholders, students, lecturers, and administrative staff and support staff, all the community of the University of Nairobi, and come up with what will work for us. Okay. This will not work for us because it's working for one individual or, you know, the top administration of the university.
Mwendo, from the Students Association kind of perspective, what kind of reforms would you want to see? What are the comrades looking for right now? Of course, we know they don't want the fee increment. What else, what kind of changes do they also want to see?
I think the immediate concerns for comrades from the University of Nairobi is full physical resumption. Because as we've discussed before, early education is ongoing. Primary school in session, secondary schools are in session. Most of these universities are in session physically. So for us, there is no tangible reason or a reasonable explanation as to why we should not be in session. I think as the mother university, the government is obligated to provide, I think they are bringing in vaccines. And as I told you earlier, the education sector is the cornerstone of the society. If we do not get proper education now, and this is the case with online education, the standards are falling. We are losing students who are becoming disenfranchised. They are failing grades, so they drop out. The standard of education is failing as we go on with online education. So for us, we have to get back into school physically in the next intake, that is August, September. So it is a call to the government, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, to work with the school management to ensure that all comrades are vaccinated and back in school physically. In terms of the restructuring, we are all eyes on the process. We have to ensure as the student leadership that all reforms conform and are for comrades. Anything that is impacting the comrades negatively, we will talk about and we will agitate against. In terms of the fee increment, I think we also have to look at this thing in a realistic eye. We are not living in a vacuum. COVID-19 is real. It has affected us. It has affected our parents, their job losses, their deaths. People have lost parents. People have lost guardians. This is not the time to talk about a fee increment. You know, you cannot be, for instance, a coffin maker, and you're invited to a funeral, then you go there and start selling your coffins. That is not the place to do that. The current and economic environment in this country does not allow us to discuss a fee increment. So for us, it's a direct request for this discussion to stay. Like, let us not discuss a fee increment now. Let the country get back on its feet. Then, and only then, can we discuss about a fee increment. There are students, the rate of deferment is the highest right now in the history of University of Nairobi. We have to look at the sustainability. Like they've said, you cannot, the Module 2 program has been losing students continuously. You cannot now increase fees with the hope of increasing these numbers. They'll only go down much more. The university has to find creative ways to raise funds. The universities around the country, institutions of higher education, have assets, very expensive assets. They can dispose of those assets. I know it is not the core mandate for these institutions to do business, but we have brilliant minds in the universities. We have students who are, like probably in Chiromo campus, they are making soap, they are making sanitizers. If we can commercialize this is not, the institution is not a business entity. It is not the core business to go into the business world. But if this goes a long way in alleviating this continuous struggle about fee increment, then we should consider going that direction, not increasing the fees.
All right. Manyara, what are the main concerns for the students from your perspective? What kind of reforms do they want to see? You mentioned hunger. You mentioned there's a lot of hunger in different places, but what else?
Even before I mention that, Trevor, the issue of reducing the courses which students are supposed to take in the University of Nairobi, I would like to pose a question to the University of Nairobi administration. Is it in line with Commission of University Education? And if so, we as KUSO, we have not forgotten what Commission of University Education said a while ago. They saying that there are some courses which are not aligned with the government's agenda, Agenda 4. There are courses which are not aligned to Vision 2030. Or even the government's, the projects which the government is working on. And they say that they will scrap a number of courses which do not make sense. But then I was to ask, is it the prerogative of every institution to come up, the council or even the Senate, to sit down and declare some courses non grata in such a way that when you come to the university admitted by KUCCPS, you study a 4-year course, and then after 4-year course, you go out there, then the same university declares that course useless, or rather, they declare that for maybe for better of a good one, they declare it, you know, non-functional.
Yeah.
You can say, for instance, one class has got 5 students. Look at India. Look at the University of Pretoria. Look at universities in Egypt. These universities, even when you have a class of around 4, 5 students, 10 students, they're enough to teach. What really matters is, are you able to offer are you able to offer the professional, you know, expertise to sustain that course? Then another issue I would like to, a question I would like to pose to the Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi. You are saying that you are reducing the number of courses in the university so that you can cut down on costs. Then, why then have you increased school fees at the same time if you have reduced the number of courses? If you're cutting down the costs through using that method, because very many students won't be paying anymore, then why raise school fees at the same time? You either raise school fees and still retain the courses, which by the way are very many, they are 379, and then fail to raise school fees. Anyway, those are matters now to do with University of Nairobi. Concerns which are affecting students nationally, we have the issue of accommodation travel. In the current dispensation, our university students, that's why I said you cannot pickpocket a naked man. Our university students is highly oppressed by this society, big time. Simply because for you to sustain a life here in Nairobi, for instance, is becoming very expensive. Very expensive in essence that there are very many students admitted to do various courses in various universities. Now, when you are admitted to these universities, there are certain spaces whereby you go to sleep or other accommodation. The University of Nairobi, you pay 28 shillings per day to get accommodation there. There are, in a semester, which of course comprises of around 3 months, you pay a total of 2,500 something. Now, there are these mushrooming private hostels. Take for instance, kuna ile inajulikana inaitwa Kwetu House, Kwetu Student Residences. Students pay to a tune of between 20,000 to 30,000, and the space that you are going to live as a student there looks like a toilet. It's something very minute. Ukiangalia hata kitanda ni ya chuma, kiti ambayo unakalia ni ya chuma. You fail to understand really, do you have to pay 20,000 to 30,000 as a student? Is that really not draconian? Even if it's a private entity, not only that hostel, kuna hata hostel zingine. Personally, it's a big concern to university students simply because not all of them can afford. And then, Trevor, these are private buildings. We don't really have policies or National Assembly to arrest, to see which range should they make students pay. Now, but it becomes a concern to KUSO because you are attracting students. And you know, if there are no spaces in the university, hao wanafunzi wengine wataenda wapi? They have to look for spaces near that university, and that's quite very expensive. Secondly, Trevor, we have the issue to do with HELB. HELB has become a major concern in the country. University students are suffering. In University of Nairobi, you have a place called Klabu. Klabu students pay around at most 100 shillings for a meal. If you go to Kenyatta University, we have a place called KM. Also, you pay roughly the same amount. Now, without pocket money, a student is highly depressed. We are talking about a silent pandemic, leave alone COVID-19. A silent pandemic which is mental illness, depression, frustration. Unajua vizuri kabisa wazazi hawana pesa. You are expecting the government to give you some funds. Initially, there was boom in the years 1990s, 80s. Ikatolewa ikareplacewa na HELB. I mean, there was one which transited, then there came HELB ikakuja. they have been reducing this amount of money for quite a long time.
Okay.
As a chairman, we have negotiated. Last week I was there with the cabinet secretary for treasury.
Yeah.
Nikwambia kwamba we need to increase this. They were not cooperative. They are saying that there are not enough funds.
Okay.
As we speak, we have also now gone all the way to Ministry of Agriculture to negotiate with the permanent secretary of cooperatives to see how students nationally can start their own cooperative, whereby we loan those students. We see whether, even when, because the government also doesn't care about you after you graduate,
Yeah.
we see how you can be able to start your own life, whether we give you a package, those kind of things. But that's a story for another day.
Okay.
But what I'm saying, Trevor,
Yeah.
students are highly oppressed. They don't have help,
Yeah.
high accommodation fees. Now you see even the fee now has been hiked.
Yeah.
Really? Surely?
Okay. Let's see what your feedback is before we take closing remarks from my guests. Let's bring them up on screen and see what you're saying. There's a lot of them. We'll try and sample a few as much as we can. Let's see what happens in terms of what you're saying there. J.M. Musoma, I believe, says Parliament should formulate a bill to cushion students, have a threshold for reforms and fee increment. Nobody is talking about parents. They are the biggest casualties. Nairobi University is failing because government used Duale bill to kill comrades' power. Okay. Let's see, Yesui Mushemi says, we face a multi-institutional hazard defined by reckless governance and destitute facilities, and we are obliged to stand up against this impunity by all means possible. Engineer Lazaro says, increasing varsity fees at this time is unacceptable. It will result in monopolized academic affairs to the children of the rich. I think someone is running this institution single-handedly without consulting the stakeholders. Okay. Vicham says a fee increment of 20 to 30% is something that can be discussed. The new fee structure you earn is outrageous and plain criminal. Free quality education is a right, not a good. Why is the ministry silent? Okay. Gib Dabson says, problem facing our universities is rising wage bill against reducing income. Unless the two are matched, expect debt rise. Okay. Jacob Abere says, Trevor causes scrapping as part of reforms can't solve financial ups and downs. Deviling UON. Example, why scrap apiculture horse? Is it because of less students or decline of bees and hives? Okay. Dama Shaban says, the current situation in Kenya varsities, mimi nilipewe fees yangu ikiwe capital ya biashara hata. Pleading face. We can't invest all that in school and you still come out here hustle like you never even stepped in school because there are no jobs. All right. Okay, let me take closing remarks from my guests now, and I'll start with the Mwendwa from the students' perspective. What is the way forward? The protests are on, like you mentioned. It's starting today, Wednesday, every subsequent Wednesday until there's a discussion.
Yes, I think as from the comments you've read,
yeah,
education is a right enshrined in the Constitution. It is not a privilege that is for the select few. Okay. The university, as I said earlier, admits the brightest minds. Let us not move to a direction now where we start targeting now the richest minds in the society. Okay. That is something we should really not focus on. Okay. And I think as the Ministry of Education, it's very silent. The government is silent even as this war rages on, and that they should be in the forefront of this discussion. I've seen the president going around. I think also in terms of leadership, I think there's a very big disconnect between the top leadership and the ground. You know, like I have had discussions with our Vice Chancellor, Professor Kiama, on the state of hostels. Yeah. They're deplorable. And I posed to him, I told him, let us take a walk, let us go to these hostels, and you see like the conditions, and he was very shocked at the proposal. I can say he was scared of going to the ground. And this is the disconnect. You know, if you go to these hostels, if you see these things that are on ground, then you cannot make the decisions you're making to increase the fees to the comrades who are going through these things. Okay. Your conscience will be touched. All right. As I said, the government has to come in. I've seen the president being on the ground more now as opposed to the past. He's seen opening clinics on the ground. He's going to the slum areas, visiting radio stations. That is, if the clinics is the health sector. You can see him opening roads, that's the construction sector. If you look at his activities around the education sector, it is very minimal, and yet it is the cornerstone of this thing. Okay. As a student leadership, we are very welcome to host him at the University of Nairobi and have this discussion with him as the #1 citizen. Yeah. If not, we are very willing to go to State House and have this discussion, because I think the government is a very key partner in this discussion, and it has to be involved.
All right. Dr. Busia, closing remarks. Where do we go from here now?
Trevor, I would like to say that the University of Nairobi should actually stop the implementation of these reforms forthwith, and let stakeholders be engaged in the process to come up with reforms that will be all inclusive, and have reforms that respect the law, have reforms that will take care of the interests of all workers, and have a clear path of reforms that we can trust in. I would also like to say that they must ensure that the rights of workers are respected, academic freedom is respected in the university, and utilize all the resources available for us to go through that diplomatic mean. Otherwise, if this does not happen, workers will not spare an effort to have our constitutional and legal rights restored. So they should know that they are actually courting, they have gone a path that will court conflict, but we still have a chance that it can be stopped, the reforms can be stopped, and we renegotiate and agree and move forward.
Okay. Waiter?
Thank you, Trevor. I just want to support what my colleague has said. The university must apply a break to the implementation of these reforms. And let us sit down as a university community to come up with a structure that will actually address the real issues. The real issues affecting this university is governance, lack of funding, and also corruption. You cannot rule out corruption. And therefore, if we sit down, I know as stakeholders in this university, we will be able to come up with a structure that will address the three issues that I have mentioned. Two, as my colleague has also said, we are actually in discussion as unions, so that then if they do not heed to our hand device, we also have other ways and options that are available to us that we are in discussion, and we are going to apply them if they don't.
Are you thinking of striking as well?
Well, I cannot say at this point in time. But we have several options. Thank you.
And you can, Dr. Musiri is saying?
You cannot rule it out. It's one of the weapons of the last resort.
Okay. Manyara?
You know, there are very many ways of killing a rat, Trevor. Sometimes you can even burn the whole house to kill just one rat. So I think matter school fees. If, for instance, our protests and our demonstrations fail, we also have plan B. I can tell you plan B, but I can't tell you plan C. Plan B is that we have gone to court through, there's a lawyer called Wakili Henry Kurauka, and we expect, because I've looked at the documents, they are citing a number of statutes, University of Nairobi statutes. They are citing also the University's Amendment Act 2012. they are citing a number of clauses which, being a first-year law student, Trevor, have looked at the documents. There are no legal grounds to hold such kind of policies, which we are going to oppose by all means possible. And we know very well, even if they hire the best lawyers in the country, we are going to win this. It's very straightforward, because you cannot really impose laws which are not linked with the Constitution of Kenya, which is supreme. Number two, on the issue of accommodation, we are partnering with we are requesting our government The president, as you have seen, is so much into infrastructure, and I think he is commissioning big projects. And we expect also students can be able to be incorporated in the affordable housing issue.
Yeah.
I've spoken to PS Hinga, and we are likely to see a scenario whereby some hostels will be erected to ensure that students can be able to afford. And also we are likely to see how we can enact policies which will regulate how much a student pays for hostels.
Yeah.
Universities Amendment Act.
Yeah.
We have proposed, we have done several petitions to the National Assembly.
Yeah.
We expect the JLAC committee to see how we can be able to approve, to return power back to comrades so that they can elect their leaders directly.
Yeah.
And lastly, on the issue to do with help, we are seeing a scenario which very soon we are going to speak to with the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, that is Munya.
Yeah.
We see how we are going to transition to SACCOs, or rather cooperatives. A cooperative which is involving all the students.
Okay.
We are able to give loans and so forth, so that our students don't have really issue of having money in the pockets.
All right. Thank you so much for making time. Dr. Richard Bosire, Chairperson, UWASU University's Academic Staff Union. You're also my lecturer, by the way. And thank you so much for making me who I am today. I had to say that on air. Asante sana, ex-comrade myself. Anthony Manyara, President, Kenya University Students Organization, that's KUSO. Eddie Mwendwa, President, UNSA, University of Nairobi Students Association, and Peter Waita, Deputy Secretary General, Nairobi Branch, that's KUSU, Kenya University Staff Union. Asante sana for making time. We have to leave it there for now. And coming up is Working Out, right? Yes. Is it Patrick Igunza? Yes, Patrick Igunza will be here in just a bit to work out. See you shortly. Bye for now.